All right, on this episode of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very excited to be talking with an individual competing on June the 14th, and that goes down at BYB 27 Brawl in Duval. And quite the intriguing rematch set to go down as Sonya Dreiling and Jamie Driver step into the Mighty Trigon, and great getting to talk to Jamie once again. How's your day been going so far, Jamie?
Day's been great. Super busy. Had a really good, tough sparring session this morning, followed by, a nice recovery day, cooked some meals, and now I'm just home relaxing.
Well, it's awesome to hear. And just, I'm kind of curious how this all came about, like the rematch and everything. Like, obviously, this was a fight that transpired, I guess, close to a couple years ago right now, October 2022. And I saw you had that post where you were saying June 14th, I get to whoop this trick again. I guess once wasn't enough. Like, how did we get here to this Sonya Dreiling rematch?
You know, with the first Sonya fight, I was unprofessional and I didn't make weight. And one of the first things I said to her after our fight, it was a very close fight. I definitely edged it out, for sure. I've watched it back multiple times. I definitely beat her, but I still was very heavy going into the fight. So it's only right for me to at least offer a rematch. So I did. I told her right after the fight, if you want a rematch, I'll make weight, whatever, and we'll go forward. And I guess, it all just made its roundabout way. And, I'm excited. She definitely deserves the rematch. But she's in for a rude awakening.
I was gonna say, is that kind of, I guess, that sort of language almost derivative of the fact that you're looking for a more conclusive finish? Like, I mean, I know you said you feel like you ultimately should have had the verdict go your way anyway, but I feel like that's invariably a question that kind of pops up with like the first fight being a split decision. Like, is that sort of emblematic of you wanting to end this one inside the distance to really, I guess, put a certain stamp on things, for lack of a better way to phrase it?
Absolutely. Just to seal the deal and make it, everybody can see, I won, not just once, but twice. And I'm going to do it in a very dominant fashion.
And the first fight, just interesting in the sense that it was historic in a certain regard, just with it being the first women's professional bare knuckle boxing match in the UK. I guess this is kind of like a two-parter in a certain sense, just with this being a sequel affair. Like, what kind of growth or differences do you see in Sonya? And also, on the other end of that, what kind of growth and differences do you see in yourself from that first fight at BYB 12?
Uh, you know, if I'm being honest, I really haven't seen much growth in her. I mean, from what I see, she just fights kind of the same way. Um, she's the only thing I can really give to her, she's tough and durable, but her game doesn't seem like it's evolved much. But as for me, I've been working diligently with my coaches here in Florida and also back home in New Jersey. I constantly watch film and footage of new age fighters and old age fighters. And I've really focused a lot more on working the game of bare knuckle. One of my coaches recently has like peppered it into my mind, Jamie, this isn't just boxing. Cause I kind of got stuck like in the Jozette fight, I just boxed. The things it's bare knuckle and it's bare knuckle boxing. So you can clinch. And I've kind of gotten away from that. So this fight camp, I really worked diligently more on working in the clinch, getting in, getting out, and more like my defensive work to, feed off my offense.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the differences with, I guess, getting back to the infighting, which I imagine you have a well of experience to pull from just with the prior MMA bouts that you've had. But maybe for certain people who aren't as familiar with some of the differences you might be talking about, like in what aspects from that first fight are you, I guess, changing, or even from the Josette fight, because you said you kind of got into the pattern of like it being more of like a boxing centric kind of approach. Like, what would you say the nuances in your game heading into this fight would be, maybe as compared to what you said as like a more boxing centric kind of focus versus Josette?
So like my head coach now, he's a traditional boxing coach. He's amazing, Derek Santos. Um, but with that, like you had just mentioned, I do have an extensive MMA background. And with that, so I work a lot of upper body wrestling, like Greco wrestling and stuff like that, because since we can work in the clinch. So that's stuff that I've been working more on so I can add that to my game and open, a different game up that a lot of the girls don't have in bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah, and I saw you had a post recently talking about how you're the best 147-pound bare knuckle fighter in the world. And definitely always great to have that sort of confidence. And you seem like you're on a good path towards presumably another title shot down the line. Like, has that been something that the promotion has communicated to you at all? Like, maybe if there's a certain timeline on that and everything like that. Like, obviously not overlooking this fight, but is there a certain trajectory that you see in the soon or I guess relatively near future that could guide you towards a sophomore crack at that BYB title?
I've been very vocal with the promotion that I definitely want another title shot. You know, the title shot I had with Jozette, we both were supposed to make 147, both didn't make weight. So I feel like, to me, I mean, obviously the fight is still a fight, you know, it was still like official and all that, but Josette, I mean, she doesn't have the 147-pound belt, so it's vacant. It's wide open right now. So I've made it very clear to the promotion that I definitely want the opportunity again. As far as the discussions we had, there wasn't necessarily a timeline. But for me personally, I feel like, you know, being that I already fought for a title, and then now I'm already on the up and up with another, like, a TKO win. Now I'm going to take out Sonya. I feel like that would put me back at the title contender spot and to fight for the belt.
Yeah, I guess I partly also asked that in the context of noticing that in like Q1 of this year, you had re-signed with BYB for a multi-fight deal. So I guess within that, I mean, obviously you want to get out there and compete and everything like that. But I guess the subtext there to me was you're looking to get on that trajectory to a title shot. And especially like you were saying with the shout out of being that best, like the top super welterweight in the sport at this juncture in your estimation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, anything that I'm doing now, it's all towards, I'm working towards fighting for the belt. You know, and I'm really grateful and happy I got to re-sign with BYB. I mean, there's no better bare knuckle promotion, and you know, so I'm really excited to re-sign and have another, you know, go with them.
Yeah, it's cool to see what they've done with like acquiring BKB recently and just like the depth of the roster that they have. I mean, BYB, I felt always had an awesome talent pool to check out, but just kind of like deepening it that much more, it would seem like.
Absolutely. That's really exciting. There's a wealth of talent, like you just said, within BYB, but now to acquire a lot of the BKB fighters is tremendous. So I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't seen, as far as for me, any females from over there in my weight class. But hopefully, you know, I already made it known. I already was talking shit on the internet about wanting to fight the UK women. So hopefully one will step up one day. But other than that, you know, first I got to beat up Sonya. So
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like there's still some aspects of this upcoming fight that I will touch on more so, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the last one there. Just quite the emphatic finish in January at BYB 23 and getting it done over Adriana Vuković. Like, what was that finish like? I mean, it seemed like there was a certain part of you that was like, oh, it would have been good to get like maybe a little more time in there, but I imagine you'd be pretty satisfied with a sub 40-second finish in the first round and all.
extremely satisfied. You know, as a fighter, we spend months, you know, preparing for one night to fight. So of course we want to fight longer, but to have such a short stoppage and, you know, in such a big way is always great. And to come out uninjured is even better. Um, yeah. But I did wish that fight was a little longer. I wish she had a little bit more juice in her tank, but it was her debut, and you know, I credit her for coming overseas and giving it a try. But you know, it's not for everybody. It's tough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, did you feel like your experience edge in the bare knuckle realm really paid dividends in that regard? Or was it maybe more of a, I guess, technique kind of thing? Because it seemed like the pressure was unrelenting towards her pretty much right from the jump. Like, do you think it was more of a byproduct of the experience or perhaps the technique and approach you applied, or maybe even perhaps a bit of both, I guess?
I have to say, definitely a bit of both. You know, I had three fights already. She had none in bare knuckle, and then on top of that, she hadn't fought, I think, in like a year or so. And she was also coming up in weight. She didn't cut, as far as I know, she didn't cut any weight. That's pretty difficult to not cut weight and then go fight someone that just cut weight and is a lot bigger and stronger, you know. So I think the mix of, but also like my skill level. I was definitely like above her. So with the IQ and my experience and stuff like that, it definitely all just played together on my half.
Yeah, and you were kind of talking about cross training a little bit, at least like in terms of like different states from what you were saying earlier. Like, what would you say the predominant spaces you've been getting in work at have been heading into this one?
So right now, so I live primarily in New Jersey. But when I'm in fight camp, I come back down to Florida and I train full time here. Before I head, into battle. But I train here with Derek Santos, as well as I do strength and conditioning at Phil DeRue's with Coach Kalen, and I've also been working a little bit with Coach Mo Lawal. So yeah, I'm getting an all different spectrum of coaches, getting me ready for this.
Yeah, I feel like I'd seen an interview kind of recently where it seemed like Mo Lawal was like pseudo entertaining, stepping in and throwing down in bare knuckle. That could potentially be interesting if that ever came to be.
Ah, man, I know. He had brought it up to me and I was like, that's crazy. And I was like, but hey, I mean, I'm always all for it, so that would be pretty rad if he stepped in there.
And that must inform a certain something when you're preparing for these fights, because from different interviews and just articles related to your fighting journey that I've seen, it seems like a lot of these names, like Phil DeRue and King Mo, as you mentioned, have really been in your corner, both figuratively and literally, for many years now. I imagine that kind of familiarity and closeness imparts something that really, I guess, just adds to each and every camp, like a compounding sort of value almost.
Absolutely. I mean, because I've known them, for a few years now, and they understand who I am and how I train, and we just have like all have just a cool working relationship. So it's cool to. For a while when I was back in New Jersey, I jumped from coach to coach, and it wasn't like I don't even know how to word it. I didn't want to. I wasn't like, I'm not a gym hopper. I hate to say that I was. I mean, I guess I probably kind of was at one point, but I never felt like I was getting the right coaching that I needed and, the right work. So to pack up and move my shit down here 4 years ago, I felt like I finally got in a groove of finding coaches I was comfortable with working with, and vice versa.
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't so much like gym hopping, I guess, but like just finding something that ultimately felt like the best fit and you eventually found it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. It's I do. I'm not going to say I have a couple coaches back in New Jersey that I still work with till this day. But it was one of those things like I just kind of grew out of their gyms. I was like, I don't not the top one, but I'm a bigger girl. It's usually rare to find bigger girls in the gyms, and when you're trying to get to an elite level, you have to train with the elites. In my personal opinion, some people they stay at their small gyms. I think that's not the best idea, but it's to each your own. And for me, I needed to step up in my level, my performance. So I did what I had to do. But yeah, I guess I wasn't a gym hopper. I was just trying to find the right home for me. And I found the right home, and it's down here. And I'm really happy I did.
So based on how you're kind of laying things out, like do you feel like you have a much deeper pool of, I guess, super welterweight women or even women relatively closer in size to get in that work with and whatnot?
I do. Women and I have a few women down here that I actually get to train with, all the time, which is amazing. And then on top of that, one of my main training partners, Logan Holler, she's fights usually a little heavier than me, but it's perfect. She's my height, size, and she's really, really talented. I think she's like 9-0 or 9-1 or something, as a gloved boxer. So she's really talented and great to work with. So it's definitely amazing work I get down here.
And I guess like speaking to the fight, I mean, I guess we kind of talked about before there was like that desire to want to kind of end it inside the distance for more of like a conclusive sort of outcome relative to the fact the first fight was a split decision, which, as you said, you felt like you should have got the nod anyway. But is there like a certain kind of like middle ground almost where like you would like maybe wouldn't mind getting in a couple relative to like the duration of your last fight? Or is it just one of those things where it's like, ah, hell, if I can get another 34-second finish, I mean, that would be great too.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if I get it, I get it. What I learned in fighting is you don't look for the knockout. You don't look, for the TKO. It really just happens. Like I really didn't expect or think that was going to happen with Adriana. Just It just all, I just, as the fight went on, I just saw my opening and I took it, So I really can't say what's going to happen with Sonya. I mean, I think in any fight, there's always the potential for it to end, but it's just having the right, I think, having a smart and a high IQ, and like that's what I've been building since Sonya. So I'm excited to see, where I'm at now and where she's at now.
Yeah, do you feel like that fight IQ? I mean, you talk about like, I guess the Jozette fight, you had more of like a boxing centric kind of approach. Like, do you feel like you've really made strides in your bare knuckle specific IQ? Because I feel like this is such a fun time in the sport because I feel like we're seeing just a lot of like ring craft and like that ever growing fight IQ. And I guess just like the specific understanding of what that even represents and everything like that. Like, do you feel like your fight IQ specific to the sport of bare knuckle boxing has been one of the biggest areas of growth that you've had?
110%. Yeah, I mean, just today I was watching back from my previous, like when I first started training with my head coach now to my sparring footage now. I'm a completely different fighter. You can just see my experience and my IQ has gone up tremendously. You know what I mean? I'm not just I always was I mean, I'm a fighter, I'm a brawler. I just like to throw down, but it's good to be smart and actually see, what's going on in front of you and work off that instead of just throwing hammers, just to throw them. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little more finesse to the scraps than the days at Hopewell Valley Central High School,
Definitely a lot more finesse.
eh? No, but I just love that. And I guess kind of the thing that I'm wondering too is I guess just the nature of the Trigon too. Like, is there anything you do in your preparations to ready yourself for competing in a space like that? Because I feel like it's so unique to combat sports in general. Like, do you find yourself working in any kind of way to account for what those kind of dimensions will be as you get out there? Or is it a lot of rather like familiarity actually when you're out there in the space? Because I feel like I've seen some BYB fighters over the years kind of almost try to curate their own like Trigon in their gyms and stuff like that. Like, do you do anything of that kind of persuasion or even do workouts where you're in tighter quarters or anything to account for that, I suppose?
No, I actually don't. I spar in a full size ring. Which that does sound crazy to most, but I think it's just a familiarity thing where I've been in there enough times where I know the canvas size and I know the amount of room I have to work with. So it's kind of just already embedded in me. It's not really like a thought. So yeah, I don't really do much in training. I
Oh,
just
that's
know
fair. Yeah.
on the
Oh, sorry, go
Trigon,
ahead.
you just can't like keep running backwards. I just know in my mind, if you take a step back, you better cut to the left or to the right so you don't run into the rope. So that's all I think I just embedded that in my mind. So it's easier for me to just do that.
Yeah, I feel like it lends itself well to the style you already have anyway. So perhaps it's not even something that you have to factor in as much. Like, I feel like you're not really on the bicycle so much. I feel like that's almost like a thing that a lot of people have to adapt to a little bit. Like, I mean, you have that thoughtful pressure, obviously, but forward pressure all the same.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, no, it's great getting to see all these different fights, though. I mean, I feel like you're one of the more action intensive fighters that BYB has had so far. So cool to see, like I had mentioned earlier in the interview, that you're in that multi fight deal. And yeah, this Sonya fight is going to be a really intriguing one to see. And I definitely appreciate you making the time to chat today, Jamie. But also want to be mindful of your time and what you're getting up to. And I mean, I know you said you got in the work earlier, but let you relax and everything like that. So is there perhaps like a final parting thought you were wanting to add as we're sort of wrapping things up here?
Well, I really, really appreciate you having me on and talking with me. I'm really, really excited for the June 14th card. I mean, the whole fight card is like a bunch of firefights. Um, all I gotta say is, I mean, I hope people tune in June 14th to see a massacre because Sonya ain't making it out alive in this fucking fight.
It's going to be a super exciting fight. Definitely stoked for BYB 27 and June 14th is going to be a great card. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker and giving some great insights. Always fun getting to chat a bit and just looking forward to peeping this fight when you both step into the Mighty Trigon. But until that goes down, you have a good rest of your night. And again, to reiterate, thank you for the time, Jamie.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.